Hey, welcome to episode number 331. How you doing, Scott?
I am great. How are you?
Doing good. You've got a little delay on your voice to picture.
Yeah. Okay. Let me sign out real quick and sign back in.
All right, I'll do the ad read for Lorangers. So let's get started with Larger. Say, Larger Family Chiropractic Center PC, longtime sponsor of the show. And they are located in Belleville, Michigan and Dexter, Michigan. They take great pride in providing the finest chiropractic care to each and every patient, offering on-site digital x-rays, orthotics by foot levelers, young limb essential oils, aromatherapy, full line of vitamins, all in a family-oriented environment. Give them a call, 734-697-4244. You can visit them online at LorangerFamilyChiropractic.com. You can find them on the Book of Faces here at Facebook and under Loringer Family Chiropractic Center PC, where they have the call now button with that number 734-697-4244. You can elect their page, send them a message. I recommend calling for anything you want to talk to them about. I've been going there for quite a few years now, and I was talking with somebody recently, and I said, yeah, I go every week. And they go, do you have to go? I said, I don't have to go. I feel better going every week. It's not a requirement for everybody. As I've talked about in the show before, with injuries from a car accident, I still deal with certain things that happen. So I like to go every week just to stay healthy. And I do miss a week here and there. So we just see that. So, but that is Loringer Family Chiropractic Center PC, located in Belleville, Michigan and Dexter, Michigan. Hey, Scott.
Hey, so today I am a ventriloquist.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I don't know why it's doing this. It's delaying my audio, and so who knows? I don't know. It's
Yeah.
always got to be something with technology.
Are you on the Wi-Fi for the office there?
Oh, let me see if that does it. Maybe.
So
But
I don't
I'll give
know.
my ad read.
Yeah, go
If
ahead
you
and do
want
your
a
ad read.
talented realtor who can speak with his lips moving at a different pace, give
He's
me a
dubbed.
call, 586. I'm done. Now, real estate's going great. We've got another busy week here. We got a closing coming up this week, and just doing our best to keep our clients as informed as possible to make the best decision possible to get them into the homes of their dreams. So give us a call, 586-232-5144. We're here for you.
Fantastic.
All right.
So, Scott, I haven't really
I'm going to
talked
try
much.
to switch this over.
All right. So everything here today was Scott. I said I haven't talked much since the holiday. We talked the other day. Scott, you're probably going to give us a non-spoiler review of Napoleon. So
Napoleon, and then also, I wasn't going to go see it because I'm not happy with the actress, but I ended up seeing the Hunger Games movie. Jill wanted to
oh,
see it. I thought, well, it'll be a compromise. I'll see it, but it's on $5 Tuesday, so I don't feel like I have my full money.
most time I'm able to
So
go, I try to go on $5 Tuesday because I want free popcorn too. So
exactly. So I'll give a review on the Hunger Games Ballad of the mocking jays and snakes or something. I forget what they call it.
songbirds and snakes.
Songbirds. Yeah. So I'll give a review on that too.
Okay. So for me, I worked a lot. It's the holiday season, so if I can get extra shops in, I'm going to get them because that's when people are busier. And so I worked. I took Thursday off, cooked a fantastic dinner along with my mom, and then Friday was kind of a day just to do a little catch up stuff, and then I worked since then. So watched a little bit of TV here and there. Okay, well, I'm blanking on it now. It's the show that you wanted to watch, Scott. I haven't watched it. It's the one about the lawman.
Oh, right. Bass Reeves.
Bass Reeves, yes. I started watching that. I've watched a couple episodes of that. Really good. Really good.
Oh, good. I haven't had a chance yet.
And I could definitely see where his story has similar to the Lone Ranger, but it's not exactly the same, of course, because you're dealing with a former slave that ends up becoming a U.S. Marshal. And they cover that in the first two episodes really good on how he goes from one to the other. And it doesn't feel rushed. They do time jumps, but you have to, because I mean, there's 10 years between a certain point where it's like he's just a family man. So but I really liked it. The guy that plays it, the main character, is really good. And it's also produced by Taylor Sheridan, who does the Yellowstone series and things like that. So But yeah, I definitely recommend it. I'm not gonna get too much into it till we can probably cover it after we've both seen the whole thing. But I definitely like it, and I like the style they're doing with everything. So
Nice. That's on Paramount Plus, correct?
correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna sign out and sign back in real quick because I
Okay.
got the tethering hooked up.
All right. Sounds good. Bye, Scott. And Scott's gone. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that. He's a real person, Pass Reeves. He's a former enslaved man turned American lawman. He was the first black deputy of the U.S. Marshals and the first west of the Mississippi River. He worked mostly in the Indian territories. He was born in Crawford County, Arkansas, and he ended up dying in Muskogee, Oklahoma. He was born in 1838, and he was married to a Nellie Jenny from 1964 to 1896. And then they had several children, quite a few children actually. Um, and they talk about that in the series. So definitely check out the series on Paramount. Without getting too much in, it's just a really well done series, very well written. I like the way they write it, and Dennis Quaid has a part in it, but he's not as much of a fixture in it as they would lead you to believe with him in it. He's only in like, I think I've seen 3 episodes. He's in like one. So,
Hmm.
but yeah,
So I think I'm still delayed.
you are.
I don't know what's going on.
It's your computer
So
most likely.
I'm
So
tethered now.
we'll just deal with it. It's probably your computer. You probably have to need to shut it down and turn it back on and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it
So
could be. So just I'll just talk like this and no one will notice. I could be like
yeah.
Wilson in Home Improvement.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I watched the Vast Rays a little bit. I did watch the new Doctor Who special. It was okay. The Donna era of David Tennant was never my favorite, anyways.
I agree. I don't know why she's so popular with people. I've never understood it.
Most people I know I talked to, they never cared for Donna, but all of a sudden she's gotten this resurgence over the years. I have it's and nothing about the actress, everything else. It was just an okay run. I liked it way better than uh the last of the Capaldi stuff that I watched. Because it was better
Yeah.
storytelling. Um, but it was just okay. It was never my favorite on any of that story stuff too. So
The
um,
strongest part of the Donna storyline to me was her dad.
yes,
That was a very powerful story with him that they did, and I did like the way they wrapped up her story in the previous seasons there, where he had to wipe her mind and stuff to
and
save
they
her.
and they dealt
Because
with it on this, and it was
yeah,
okay. They how they dealt with
so
it,
the ending of her arc I liked.
yeah. Well, now she's got a new arc because now she's doing all the specials. She was in the first one. The second one comes out this Saturday. Disney Plus is doing the worldwide stuff, but in the UK and somewhere else, it's like Sky or whatever. Um,
I would
and
rather if they revisited the Rose storyline, um, with the way that ended. That would be a
yeah,
really cool Christmas special storyline to bring her back.
yeah, I forget. I was looking it up right quick, see how many specials they're doing. They're doing like I think
They used to
3
do
or
one a
4.
year.
Yeah, this is different. This is the 60th anniversary. This isn't about just a holiday special.
Mm.
So this is the 60th anniversary. 3 of them. So there's 3 total. Um,
Oh, okay.
and it's Tennant and Catherine Tate are back as part of that. Neil Patrick Harris is supposed to guest star probably in the next one. Um, and they mentioned a bunch of other people. They mentioned the grandfather in the first one here, but the actor's passed away a couple years ago. And I liked
Yeah.
him as an actor. He's a good actor too. He's a bunch of other stuff over the years. So, but yeah, I think this whole special thing is all around Catherine Tate and David Tennant as characters. Um,
All three specials?
yeah, that's what it's looking like to
Okay.
me. Um,
Yeah.
in that,
I,
but
I
it's
think where I think where Doctor Who as a whole is going wrong is they have a huge opportunity to reunite the fan base with Paul McGann, I believe is his last name. He was the eighth Doctor.
yes.
Very short run. He basically had a one time special thing. And but he's been very involved with Doctor Who on the audio side, doing a lot of audiobooks for his Doctor
Hmm.
and their adventures over the years. And he is willing to come back, and he's at a great age to play a Doctor still.
Yes.
Um, the fan base would love it. He wants to come back, and they already set up the premise, especially with Tennant, that the Doctor can revisit old faces. So
Yeah, they
if they
just set that
bring him
up.
back,
Yeah.
yeah, if they brought him back, that'd be huge.
Well, the thing what they're doing here is, and I understand what why they went with this route here was Tenet is the most popular of the modern era doctors.
Yeah,
And uh the Eighth Doctor's done some audio stuff and he's done a few other things, but really overall, worldwide, Tenet's the more popular one. Um,
right.
and that's and that because I remember when at the height of Doctor Who's fandom that we saw at Comic Cons, it was Tennant. When Tennant announced he was leaving and they were wrapping up his storyline and Matt Smith was taking over, the mainly female fan base we would see at the tables were so upset because they love David Tennant. You know, that's all they'd rave about.
Yeah,
And then they wouldn't give.
they were David Tennant fans, not necessarily Doctor Who fans.
Correct. And that's what it was. They were David Tennant fans. They claimed to be Doctor Who fans. I was like, well, if you're Doctor Who fan, then you should be used to this. It happens. And these run his story and it's perfect. Let's go on to the next one, which was Matt Smith, who is my favorite of the modern doctors. I liked his storylines
Yeah,
better overall than the 10 stuff was fun. I enjoyed that. But when Matt Smith came in, I liked his take on the doctor. I liked the stories they were doing. They introduced Karen Gillan as the companion. I love that whole storyline, which they did a complete finish on that
oh
one
yeah, with Rory and Amy, that was great.
and stuff like that. But going back, I mean, it's now they're claiming that this is giving Donna Noble uh, more justification, a proper ending, and I always felt that they gave her a proper ending. Again, you know, the father they wiped her mind. They said if she ever remembered the doctor, she would explode. They handle
Yeah,
that in the
she had pulled in too much power from the TARDIS or something, the energy to be a Time Lord. She became a doctor, but her human body couldn't contain it.
right. So they did something to make her forget it, but it was still there. And then
Right.
they dealt with it in this first special,
Yeah.
which again was just okay. The
Well, I think the
main
other problem. Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
The main
The delay is
villain,
causing issues.
the main villain is a character called Meep, and it starts off as a
Was
cute
he in the
character.
Muppets?
No, but listen, hear me out
Meep
on
meep.
this. Actually, hear me out on this. Don't throw jokes in yet.
Okay.
So it starts off as this cute character becomes an evil character. That's your spoiler for this episode here. But they stole the name and I think the basic somewhat idea, but not completely, from Phineas and Ferb because they had a white colored creature
Oh,
named Meep in several episodes. Look it up.
wow.
Not the same creature,
Ah.
but to call it Meep when it first thing it says it goes, "Hey Meep," and it goes Meep. I'm going, wait a minute, that's Phineas and Ferb. You guys get you think we know this, you know? So I was very disappointed in that aspect. They should have called it something else. But I like
Yeah.
the little storyline with that creature. But again, it was just an okay
Yeah.
Doctor Who special, and I'll tell you something off there when we're done talking, Scott. So
Yeah. I think one of the I think the main reason Tenant's back personally, this is my own thoughts. The franchise as a whole is having trouble. They're
yes,
straying away from who the Doctor is. Yes, the Doctor changes form, and the personalities of the Doctors change, but there was always a rigid structure of who he was, and they're trying to break away from that to be more progressive. And the the way they brought about a female Doctor, I don't think they handled it right. Um, but to be fair to her, I would have been fine with it if the stories were good, but they sucked.
yeah,
And they were trying to become very progressive with all the companions they were bringing in, and it just wasn't working. So a lot of people, myself included, did fall away from the series during that.
yeah,
Capaldi, there were a lot of people who didn't care for Capaldi. I did like his stories. Was he 3 seasons? I
yeah.
think
He was fine. Really the
I
last
like.
season I didn't like with Capaldi was they got rid of
Yes,
the sonic screwdriver. He had his glasses, and
yeah.
they weren't really telling
They
story.
got weird with him.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. They took him away from being the doctor, and it just wasn't
I,
well written.
I
And
felt it.
then,
This season was his first, and then it just progressively went downhill.
well, and the other thing you had was you had a lot of fan base with Capaldi. They didn't like the companion, the one girl. And she'd been in during the Tenet time inside a Dalek, and then so she's playing another
Yes.
character, and I liked her just fine, but they were not fulfilling the stories there, and they spent so long at this school, and
Yeah.
it really just lost track of being a Doctor Who show.
Correct. They lost their way.
Yes,
And so that hurt. Then they brought in the female doctor. Now the next doctor, I really think they just brought in Tennant as pure fan service
yes.
to pump up the numbers as much as possible. So when they introduce the new doctor, that honestly a lot of people aren't going to want to bother with. You know, they're it's stupid what they're doing.
I haven't paid attention to it, so um, I know there's supposed to be a new Doctor, but that's still like another year away before they bring him out. As
Well,
my
they fully
understanding.
introduced them, and it was a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
It's basically a tranny
Okay.
or a gay guy or something, and he's all dressed up as this female clothes, and it's stop, just stop.
Yeah, I hadn't read anything on any of this stuff. Well, they have introduced, and this was done even prior to them doing it with the female. They'd introduced the Doctor and the Time Lords as being gender fluid, and that was done with the Master and other stuff. So, I mean, however they choose to go with that, the big thing is
But
this
the
is
creators were very clear on the Doctor being male and why he's male.
Mhm.
And like I said, you could turn her if you do the story right. You could make it a female Doctor, but I thought the stories were just bad.
Well, that's my
You
whole thing
know,
is that the problem with the stuff is the same thing that you and I've talked about before. It's bad storytelling. And if it's agenda driven, regardless of what the agenda is, right, left, in between, if it's a bad story, it's a bad story. I don't care. I don't watch stuff,
exactly.
because talk the way they believe the way I believe. If it's not good, and I'll watch stuff I may not always agree with if it's a good storytelling. I may not always have an agreement
Mhm.
on everything done in there, just like everything going on. But it is all about storytelling. And I just saw this yesterday. I was flipping through channels, and one of the news channels, saw the same thing, and they were talking with a guy, and he said, "Problem is bad storytelling. It doesn't matter what they're introducing; it's not telling a good story. It's not telling a story half the time." So, we'll see.
Right.
I haven't watched Doctor Who really since the Capaldi era. I fell off because of that. I didn't watch the Whitaker thinking, "Oh, this could be better." It was the same people writing it, and I saw how the writing was. That was like, I'm not enjoying their writing. I'm not going to watch it. It had nothing to do with Whitaker or anything else
Right.
being a female doctor. It really had to do with the fact that
So
bad stories.
yeah, along that lines, Capaldi, I really enjoyed Capaldi's first season. Second season, I'm like, okay, maybe they'll get back on track. Third season, I'm just like, they're running out of content or something.
Yeah, the first season was
So I kind of
fine.
fell away.
Yeah, the first season was fine, but even then, towards the end of it, their direction was starting to get lost, and he was trying to be this hip rock and roll doctor at one point, and
Yeah.
it's
Well,
just
I'm forgetting
it's a
the
sci-fi
companion's
kids
name. What
show.
was her name? What was her
Gosh,
name? Anna? It's bugging me because I know her name. Anyways, I thought the storyline was decent, and they
yeah,
got it to a point where she was basically killed off.
yeah.
Like she was trapped in time or spread throughout time. There was
Yeah,
something
they
I'm
introduced
forgetting the details.
his second companion was Bill, the female character Bill Potts, played by Pearl Mackie. What's her
Oh
name?
yeah,
Clara. It was Clara
Clara.
Oswald.
Thank you. But then they
And
brought Clara back, and I think they ruined it when they brought her back.
yeah, it's just yeah, they introduced the Bill Potts. They kind of recycled a lot of storytelling. I really just stopped watching it. It got to the point that last season I was like, it was just unwatchable. Um, they just didn't. And it's the same because Capaldi's a good actor. And again,
Yeah,
nothing against the actors that are on the show. It really was strictly just the writing, and that's what it is for me
and
on almost everything is writing.
they had a really cool opportunity to tie in not a mistake, but a coincidence into the storyline of this doctor, and they screwed it up. In
Yeah.
during the Tenant seasons, he went back to Pompeii, and Capaldi played a character in Pompeii for those
Yes.
episodes. And it would have been so awesome to do an episode where he goes back, and then he runs into himself, and he has to pretend like he doesn't realize it's himself because he has to keep the events. It would have been a cool way to tie in the past Doctor to the present Doctor,
Right.
you know. But instead of
Yeah.
always retconning the past, it happened in a cool way.
Yeah.
But
And that's part of the problem too, is because they did so much, and this is where you run into time travel issues. And they had what they
mm,
called the fixed point in times with Doctor Who, which were really these are things you can't
yeah,
change. I love that. It was like
yep,
the end for Amy and Rory was a fixed point in time that they could never change. And I think it gave a
right.
good ending to those stories. Um, but what I like best about like the Matt Smith era was they introduced a lot of characters. He had his companions, then introduced characters like the River character. She was great. Should have had her own show for a while there. Um,
Oh yeah, she was spectacular.
yeah, but it's just they when I get into the Capaldi, they kind of wiped out everything, and then I felt the same way. I felt even the first season like, okay, this is not going anywhere. They don't really have anything to tell. There's just no story there. So
Well, and I could be wrong on this, but going from memory, I want to say there was like some kind of shift in behind the scenes,
yeah,
whether
you had
either in the
Moffat.
show or the BBC.
Yeah, Moffat and Davies were the main two guys, and they were like one
Yeah,
was leaving, and then that's part of this special now. Is I believe it's
he's back.
Russell's is back. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
let me see here.
Yeah,
But
your
yeah,
showrunner is important, like we've talked before.
yeah, and that's what changed was the showrunners, the head writers. The one was leaving to go do other stuff, and the other one came in, um, and that. So you see
I
here.
want to say, if I remember from the time, the BBC wanted to force them to go a different direction, and there was like disagreement. I could be wrong on that though, but and that was a
You,
few years back.
that there's always the those in charge of the studios and that will say some
Right.
things. Um, but yeah, it was. Let me see here. But yeah, it's. Let me see here. I hate when you find stuff and then all of a sudden it's gone.
Yeah,
uh, so I mean, the thing with Tenet too is like they bring his face back, and he's back in the thing there. And one thing I do find kind of funny is I felt like he was a little bit of the Doctor and a little bit of the angel he plays in that other series, the Good Omens, or that he plays a demon, I
Oh
guess.
yeah.
But
Hey, did this fix my audio? Hello, hello, hello.
hey, yeah, it did. What'd you do?
So I'm like looking. I'm like, what are these settings? Because my computer did an update or something. So I just opened my
Okay,
settings, and it's using the computer mic instead of my. I have a microphone here. It wasn't
yeah,
set to the microphone here, so I switched
ah,
it, and everything synced up.
yeah. So the main showrunners for Doctor Who have been were Russell T Davies, Stephen Moffat, and then Chris Chibnall. I think Chibnall's the most recent one. Um, but it's mainly Davies and Moffat
Yeah,
that people know from this modern era. Um, and then, well, there was a Phil Collinson. He was the first producer, and then but they had like Moffat and Davies were doing a lot of the writing though. So
right. And I feel like
um,
when it was under Moffat and Davies, they did a really good job of telling these stories that had larger arcs that covered the season, but
yeah,
keeping individual episodes still individual enough that they felt individual, but they connected still. And so
yeah.
when you would have this grand event happen, it
Well,
was really well done.
really, it was Davies was the better of the two, in my opinion. He
Yeah.
was there until 2010. Moffat did really good from 2010 through the Matt Smith, but that was also part of the problem there. If I remember right, was Moffat and Matt Smith. Matt Smith was ready to move on. He was getting movie offers, and I think and Moffat kind of that's when Moffat did what he did with his ending, which really was a crappy ending
They
for
cut it
the
short
yeah.
without telling Smith, right? They surprised him, if I
They basically said,
remember.
"Yeah, you're done after this," and then they decided,
Yeah.
and then they switched him over to Capaldi. They hired Capaldi, brought him in, and that was part of the problem too. There, and then because they cut it short, because there should have been another season in there.
Yeah.
Um, it was. I think they also lost the storytelling they could have done.
Yeah.
And then they bring in Capaldi, and again, I think it was more of just a, and that again was Moffat, but I think it's also other people. I think Moffat just didn't care at that point. There was something else going on with Moffat, but I
Moffat
just,
was involved with so many things. He was doing the Sherlock Holmes at the time, and
and I think
the
that was
Doctor
part of it too.
Who,
Was
other
he was
things.
Doctor Who was like an afterthought for him at that point.
Yeah, I think he was
So
spreading himself too thin.
and it made it spread thin. It made it just like screw it, I don't care. Here,
I
do
also feel
this.
like they've gotten away from the classic villains, like the Cybermen, and like I feel like that stuff has been kind of broken away from. But I am happy. I do want to see these specials.
Yeah.
And I like the use of the Neil Patrick Harris character.
Yes.
Is he playing the Master, or is it a new character?
Toy Maker. I'm not sure who he
Toy Maker.
is.
Okay.
I think it's a new character. No, the Master. I want to say that they wrapped up that story and they killed the character off.
Was he permanently killed?
Yeah. Well, they became a female.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then I was thinking they actually killed off the Master.
I think you're right. But you could still have the Master in younger versions, I guess, before the death of him. When you're with time travel, you can do whatever. But if it's a new character too, I think Neil Patrick Harris, he's a great actor. He does a wonderful job.
Yeah. Let me see here. Here we go. Yes. According to the thing on Reddit, so he died for good in Last of the Time Lords, The End of Time, The Doctor Falls, The Power of the Doctor. So they killed him, but then I think they brought him back. Looks like they went back to a male during the Whittaker years.
Okay.
So I don't know. But yeah.
An
So
interesting.
it's been a long talk of Doctor Who, but yeah, that's kind of what's going on right now as the specials are airing.
One last point I'll make about Doctor Who. What's really intriguing to me is when you watch the history of Doctor Who, and really one of the core essences of this character is how he regenerates. That was never intended originally. They had the first Doctor, and he was starting to have issues due to age, memory, and other issues. And
he had a lot of health issues.
Yeah.
And
they got to the point where it's like, we have to replace him, but he's so popular. What do we do? And someone at the studio came up with the idea of, well, he's an alien. What if we just say he regenerated? And poof, this concept is born.
Yep. Yeah, he was an older actor too. That was William Hartnell. And
I wish they would do more with the first Doctor now, because the guy who plays in Harry Potter,
David Bradley, he played the janitor basically. But he played him in a movie about him.
Right. And he has been the first Doctor in a couple of episodes where they brought him in, and he's spectacular as the first Doctor.
He looks very much like him.
And he has a grumpy demeanor just like him.
Yeah.
So Filch is what I was trying to think of.
The movie he starred in, it was called An Adventure in Space and Time. And it was a 2013 British biographical television film. I saw it on BBC America. I don't know if you can see anywhere. It looks like you can get it on Prime maybe. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It was really good. Gave his good story, talked about, why he had to leave and all that stuff. But
I liked also in one of the specials, I think it was the Three Doctors. I can't remember though which one. I want to say they even tied in the Grand Moff Tarkin, Peter Cushing. They tied Peter Cushing's Doctor Who in, who isn't part of canon. And I believe like he was walking through the street and they had the movie poster up, and basically they were treating it as though that was the movie humans made about the stories they heard about encounters with Doctor Who or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like stopped and looked at it like, and you see the Peter Cushing Doctor up there.
Yeah, I think it was the 50th anniversary special.
Was that it?
Time. Yeah.
I thought that was a good idea. A good way of kind of paying homage to this side character that never was part of canon.
Right. So Disney Plus, I think once a week they'll be popping up, so you can definitely check them out. They're about an hour long each.
Yeah, I forgot Disney Plus has those too. They'll be fun just to go back and watch old ones. I love the old series, like especially Eccleston through Tennant is such a great run. Those Three Doctors.
You mean Smith? It goes Eccleston, Tennant, Smith.
What did I say?
You said through Tennant, and then you said Three Doctors. So
Smith.
yeah. So it's Smith. Yep. So and I said those are my favorites. They did really good storytelling, and then I know some people like the Whitaker one, but she never got the ratings. And then this new Doctor they're introducing, we'll see. I just wonder if it's one of those things where Doctor Who, we talked about this and other stuff, has run its course over the last almost 20 years since they reintroduced it, and they need to now take a break.
Yeah,
and come back some other time.
If they took a 5 to 10 year break, I think it'll do wonders for the brand, and then come back and just continue the tale from that point. Have a fresh Doctor, spend some time getting a bulk story together that will last at least 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be spectacular.
Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff. Well, that was unexpected.
Yeah. So now you've seen a couple movies this week. I definitely want to see Napoleon. The Hunger Game one, I'll probably wait till that pops up on streaming or something, but
yeah,
we'll see. And only because I've never was a big fan of the Hunger Game movies were just okay. Yeah. I read the books originally and they were even worse.
Yeah, the books, as far as the books, so I did read the books for Hunger Games. I've always felt the way they ended the books, to me, and I'm not saying this is fact, I don't know what the truth is, but to me, it always felt like it was intended to be a 4-book series. And when she was about 2/3 done with the 3rd book, they called and said, "Hey, we're not going to do a 4th book, so wrap it up." And all of a sudden, the ending just is boom, 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 and it's done.
The problem I always had with the book endings was it was from Katniss's perspective. So the book primarily was Katniss moping, and then someone shows up, "Hey, here's what you missed."
Right. And then as a reader, you're like, well, I wish they followed that group then. I would rather know what they did while it was, instead of hearing it after that. I think that's another problem with the books. And I do think this is a rare case where the character on screen was actually better than the book version.
Yeah.
When we invest our time in a story, you want to see your hero grow and get stronger. I think the problem here is she probably did too realistic of a take of a person who actually would have gone through this stuff. And she probably, your character really would have severe PTSD, having to kill other children to survive. And, I think she went too realistic with the PTSD version. And reading 300 pages of a person who's just sitting on their bed, not wanting to do anything, isn't fun.
No.
It's kind of depressing.
Well, and that's the whole thing. And even the initial premise of the series, while there were some differences to it, she really borrowed a lot from the movie Battle Royale.
Oh, yeah.
Which was about a classroom that, as the classroom picked that year for the Battle Royale, which they do once a year. Yeah. When it was a Japanese movie. And it was, for what it was a good movie, but it's not something that you really care to follow the characters. They think they had to kill each other off to get down to the last couple characters, and then they take off, and then Battle Royale 2 followed them a little further. So
yeah. So regarding the original series, they ended up doing 4 movies. The 3rd book they split into a part 1 and part 2. I always think that's a mistake. I think that was purely a money grab by the studio, thinking, 100%. Hey, yeah, everyone's loving this, so we'll do it. And I think they ruined it by doing that.
Well, why they did it, don't you?
Why?
Because of Harry Potter. They had to split the 7th book for Harry Potter because it was so long, because it's this thick, into 2 parts, and they handled it very well. It worked perfectly like that, and they came out 6 months apart. Right. And they did the same in Mockingjay. They were like, they started seeing this. We had a couple things like that recently. It's like, we're gonna split 2 movies. It's like, why? Because Harry Potter made $1 billion on each movie.
Yeah. I think traditionally it's a mistake to do it.
Yeah.
Because when you do that, a book is structured where the first half of the book is set up and the final half of the book is exciting. Well, when you split a movie in 2, you end up with one boring movie and then the exciting movie. And I don't know. It just doesn't work well when you split a story in 2. Either do a longer movie or...
Well, and I think it's also about time. I don't always agree with it. I think like Harry Potter worked because you had the first one was the entire setup they needed to cover, which was the hunting of the Horcruxes.
Right.
Right up to, and they used Dobby's death as the catalyst for the ending.
Right.
To give that cliffhanger ending as well as unfortunately a sad ending. The show wasn't done yet. And then the second half was basically everything for the Battle of Hogwarts, which in of itself was took up of the almost 3-hour movie, took up over 2 hours. So
right, yeah. So with them, I watched the first 3 movies of the original ones, and I ended up not even bothering with the final movie just because from reading the book, I'm like, the ending sucked.
yeah.
So I'm like, I'm done. So I to this day I've not watched the 4th Hunger Games movie.
I think I've watched them all on once on when they were on like HBO or something like that at one time. So
okay. Now with this one, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
yeah.
I did not. She did release this as a book. I did not read the book, so I kind of went in this fresh without knowing the backstory.
Mm-hmm.
As far as how it falls in place, like I said, I didn't see the 4th one, so I'm not judging that one. But regarding the 3 I saw in this one, I think the first Hunger Games movie is still my favorite. I think this is probably my second favorite, though. I do like this one. I did enjoy. To be fair, I'm not.
It's an interesting take on. I haven't seen it. I know the premise follows
Snow.
who is Snow, who was the main bad guy in the books.
Yeah, he was the president of Pan Am.
Yeah, and this was him kind of his rise to power.
Yep. How he came from nothing and how he's working through the ranks. So we're seeing him. So the first half of the movie, just like with these other movies too, whether it's Divergent or Hunger Games or Maze Runner, all of these movies are great in the first one because the gimmick is the main feature. But once the gimmick is done and you move on, it's not as good.
Well, the problem is why I think that the Songbirds will work better if they ended up doing more of these. I don't know how far they're going along with it. Is when you're telling this kind of story and you have a hero that wants to save everybody, but everybody has to get killed along the way.
Right.
There's no redemption.
Right.
It is just okay, I did it and this sucks. And that's the end of the world, basically. Where you're dealing with a villain and following a villain's progression, then you have that building up and you have a chance to introduce a heroes for redemption down the road. Now, of course, you're not going to be able to do that with this Songbirds and everything else movie because the ending is the Hunger Games. So this is the prequel, and it could tell a better story. But at the point when it gets done to that story, where the ending happens. So
right, yeah. So this is, if I remember right, 65 years before I think the movies that came out before. I think
this was like when they introduced the Hunger Games, right?
So, okay, so the movie itself, the action I enjoyed in the Hunger Games part. Mm-hmm. The execution of the story itself, I think they did poorly. They keep talking about this is like how the Hunger Games started, but they're talking about like the Hunger Games have been happening already. Okay. So it's weird. It's like it makes no sense because they have people protesting that I feel like the Hunger Games have been around 10 years at this point. I feel like they do a poor job of that. And then with the Snow character, where they do a poor job is they make him a sympathetic character that I actually had to go online and read like what the hell happened here? Like what was with that ending? And evidently, even when the book came out, there were a lot of posts, people arguing back and forth of what the ending meant. So I think it was kind of the way she wrote it wasn't strong. Snow is supposed to be a villain. He's supposed to be selfish, self-centered, power hungry, and doing anything to move up the ranks. I don't feel they portrayed him that way. And then certain things happen. I'm just scratching my head going, that makes no sense. And then when I went and read these comments, it sounds like either something got moved in in the order of sequences it happened or something. And
that happens with going to film from books. So
right. But when they lay it out, how it sounds like it happened in the book, it made more sense.
Yeah.
And the other benefit you have with books is what the character is thinking. So their motives and everything else. So it sounds like in the books, it was much more clear how devious he was. Whereas in the movie, he came across sympathetic. And so when the ending happens, I'm just scratching my head going, what? This made no sense to me.
Yeah, reading just the basic premise, he's assigned to be a mentor for the District 12 female, it looks like. Here's the thing. I mean, realistically, it sounds to me like the story should have been about, him partnering with this person to help her win the Hunger Games so they can start grabbing power. because he's only 18 in
Yeah.
this movie. And it's post the war, it's 64 years prior to the books that we know. So, but it also sounds like it falls into the problem I've seen in a lot of these movies these last 10, 15 years is things like Maleficent, things like that. They're taking good villains and trying to make them the heroes.
Right. But and you got to be very careful if you're going to play that game.
Yeah.
You have to definitely find ways of revealing what's going on in their head so that you, the viewer, knows the motive behind it.
Yeah.
A book can do that. A movie can't. Yeah. So you got to be crystal clear with why they're doing stuff.
And it's fine to have a villain redeem themselves.
Yeah.
And Star Wars, the original trilogy is a good example. You have a villain in Vader. We've seen other stuff now where they've done the previous stuff, so they show how he became evil. There's a lot of stuff in between books, movies to show the evil that he did. What brought him out of it was, for a lot of people, he, of course, becomes evil when he thinks he's lost everything, his wife and kids and everything else. That's how he became Darth Vader from being Anakin. And he redeems himself when he sees his son about to basically be killed by the true evil, which was the Emperor. They introduced that true evil. But as we know from the Hunger Games, Snow is the true evil.
Correct. We already know this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I don't want to give away spoilers. So basically, from reading what happened in the book and stuff, he was using certain people to move up. But when you watch it on the film and you don't know the book, to me, it felt like he truly cared about these people. So when a certain event happens, to me, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So the first half of the movie was excellent, but that was the Hunger Games part of the movie. You're seeing how. So basically what's happening is the Hunger Games is getting stale. Viewership is dropping. And they're like, we got to get people watching again. So Snow, as a homework assignment, they tell them, hey, tell us how we can make the games better. So he comes up with a way. They did have to fight to the death before. But he came up with a way where he's like, well, we got to humanize them and make people cheer for them. And if you feel like your person might survive, you might watch more. Right. And then he came up with the concept of making donations so you could send supplies to the person you're hoping will win. So he found a way to make it more watchable to the viewer. So I guess it was the first Hunger Games in that regard, but for like 10 years, they were doing the battle to the death already. So, but that whole element was great. Then they move away from the games. And to me, that's where the strength of the story started falling.
Yeah. Well, and that makes a lot of sense. So
yeah. So first half A+.
Yeah.
Not A+. I'll give it a A-. A- because they don't cover the motives well, I don't feel.
Yeah.
But now the fight scenes, I do want to comment. I like, and this happened too in the other Hunger Games, I do like that they do very realistic take on fighting in that, our main hero in this is Lucy Gray. She's a very small, petite girl. She's like 18 years old or something, and whatever she is, 16. She's not going to fight some big 200-pound dude. Well, she doesn't. She survives the Hunger Games basically by hiding, avoiding, running away, and buying herself time over and over again. I don't even think she throws a punch in this. I think it's constantly like, try and get out of the way. So in that regard, I do like how realistic it is. And it actually makes it feel more brutal that, it's all these people who don't know how to fight, and so I like how they cover that. And even in the Katniss ones, now she was a hunter. She survived off the land, so she was good with a bow and arrow, but they didn't make her this amazing hand-to-hand combat person that could overthrow a 300-pound dude.
They introduced the characters in the first Hunger Games movie, and all these ones from the districts, especially the lower number districts were the more richer districts. These kids are coming and going, oh, we're all going to win. But they also partnered up to wipe out the weaker ones first before they went at it, is what their plans were. Which was interesting because I always thought that was interesting. That I looked at going, would you really want to do that, knowing that you have to kill everybody? Would you want to take a chance that one of them wouldn't stab you in the back? Yeah, literally.
Right. Yeah. To me, the strongest guy should surround himself with the weakest people. So you have numbers; they act as shields for you
Yeah.
as as a
Well, actually,
group. You take out
I always
the
thought
other
the best
people.
thing was the way Katniss handled it. She grabbed her
Yeah.
bow and she went and hid. I mean,
Well, right.
and that's the best way to do it. And then you got to start. I mean, if you're going to do that, the only way to really survive something like that, in my opinion, would have been to hide and basically be like a mix between Rambo and Arnold Schwarzenegger and the
Yep.
Predator. You're hiding and then taking them out as they come near you.
Yeah. So it was so that regard I do applaud them because especially nowadays we want every female, we want to see every film having a 90-pound female completely crush a 300-pound male in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah,
It's just ridiculous. There's a 100-pound male will have extreme difficulty fighting a 300-pound male. Weight matters.
It does. Yeah, and
I'm not taking on Brock Lesnar one-on-one.
Exactly. So
no.
But then, real quick, don't get too detailed into it. But you saw Napoleon. What were your thoughts on that?
Napoleon. Okay, so I really enjoyed it. Now, there's some controversy arising. People feel they took too many liberties with Napoleon's past, but Joaquin Phoenix was even saying he watched a 3-hour debate between two Napoleon experts who couldn't agree on almost anything on Napoleon's life. He's like, there's so much. We know certain things as fact, but there's so much that is just wide open to interpretation that depending on your point of view, you're going to see him very differently. And I thought that was a very valid point. We're talking about somebody who lived 300 years ago. It's not like we have video of him and all this other stuff to know all. It's not like now where everybody has their own social media account. You can see how they live on a day-to-day basis. So yes, liberties were made. The other thing is just the fact of filmmaking. To encapsulate a whole person's life into a 2-hour, 36-minute movie, certain elements of their life are going to have to be deconstructed and recombined into something that symbolizes the totality of this, but in this little small package. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You can't tell a 40-year history in 2 hours without doing something. Same with certain characters. A lot of times these movies will take a group of people in the person's life and condense them down into a single character that maybe didn't exist, but it represents all of these people that happened in their life. So as far as a movie goes, I really enjoyed it. If you enjoy history, I think you're going to like it. The costumes, the scenery, the sets, beautifully done. Napoleon had some very major milestones in his career, many of them. Mm-hmm. Any single one of those would make a full movie on their own. So telling his whole career in a film, it ends up being more of a bunch of bullet points, but well-told bullet points.
Yeah.
So for me, Ridley Scott is very hit and miss for me a lot of times with his films. This one was a hit. I really liked it.
Oh, cool. I still want to check it out. I'm going to try to go see it because I think it's something I need to see on the big screen.
They do such a great job of bringing that time period to life. Mm-hmm. You forget, like you feel immersed into this time period.
Right.
So the other thing I'll point out is the use of accents. Napoleon's French. Mm-hmm. The actors portraying all these characters, they didn't speak with French accents. They just spoke with their normal English accents. But when characters were from other countries, they did have accents on them. So I feel like what he was going for is if you were French living in France, you don't feel you have an accent. Because so I wonder if that was what he was going for.
Yeah, I can see that. It's one of those things where, it's tough to go either way on that because you're doing an English film.
Right.
So,
but in all sincerity, probably the first 2 minutes, it was kind of like weird to me. Like, shouldn't they have French accents? But after about 2 minutes, you forget and you just fall into the movie.
Yeah.
So go see it. If you like history, I think you'll like it.
Okay. And then other stuff, I watched a lot of stuff. I did watch a little bit of the new anime version of Scott Pilgrim, and it's doing a slightly different take than what the movies did, and a little more not as rushed. So
is it its own? Is it like same story, or is it a continuation? Or
same story? It's the original story,
and
it's made it to look like the graphic novel.
Got it.
And stuff like that. So I watched a little bit of that. It was okay. I liked the movie. It was fine, but this will give it probably more spending more time. Like the first episode, I think is when they take takes on a Battelle and stuff like that. So they're kind of spacing out that way. So,
and the Scott Pilgrim, for those who don't know, isn't he trying to date? Wait, how's
it starts off Scott Pilgrim is dating a
it
high
go?
schooler.
Scott Pilgrim, is that the one with all the boyfriends?
Yeah, it's the
And she
evil
has
exes.
a bunch of ex-boyfriends who are.
Yeah, it was the original
it.
graphic novels were evil ex-boyfriends, and then the movie was evil exes because they introduced an ex-girlfriend. And then and of course it always starts off with Scott Pilgrim. The story starts off with Scott Pilgrim is dating a high schooler. He's dating Knives Chow. And she's like 17 and he's like 22.
And does Scott Pilgrim have superpowers?
Yeah, it's like they all do in some way. They all have weird, like almost like Street Fighter type powers. It's like when he goes to a fight, they do different stuff. So it's definitely a mix of stuff. So I read the original graphic novels. They were fun. And then the original movie was good. And this is not bad for animation. I know some people are kind of really loving it, and I'll probably watch a couple more of those. But it's not anything I haven't new stories. Just kind of like, oh, okay, so and then another series I watched was All the Light We Cannot See. That is on Netflix. It's based on a novel, and at the ending I was like, okay, and I went and looked up the novel. They changed a lot from the novel into the thing there. It follows a blind French girl and then a young German soldier's paths that collide in World War II. He's a radio operator. She's running a radio, which was her uncle's. And then her father is played by, what's his name? The Hulk from the MCU, the most recent one.
Banner. It's
Mark Ruffalo. Plays her father. And he has a really bad accent in this because he did use accents for him. It was an okay series. I kind of liked it. I thought the ending was okay. They had more of a happier ending in some ways, where they implied that the German soldier could come back and get it, but they don't give really anything after the point of when he gets captured and the town is liberated by the Americans. So it's an interesting look at World War II and the use of the radio. Hugh Laurie plays the older uncle, the great uncle. And that, so it's something that's worth checking out. I've watched it once. I'll never need to watch it again, though.
Yeah.
The replayability is low on that. So, and then I know I haven't seen it yet, but I had a friend of mine post who I trust on this about the new Disney Wish movie. Says it's really just feels like it's just they had like a bunch of ideas they just threw together and then made this movie. So really the story is kind of all over the place.
Yeah. Disney needs to get their act together.
Yeah.
You can only lose billions of dollars so many times. But I did watch something this week, an old one, but I've never seen it.
That's that.
Surprisingly, The Truman Show.
Great film.
Never seen it. I've seen clips.
Oh, it's a wonderful film. I think it really shows how that one, The Majestic, are two Jim Carrey films. When you look at this is not the goofy Jim Carrey. This is Jim Carrey that can act.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is well done. It's interesting watching it nowadays versus, maybe 20 years ago when it came out. Because with how much reality TV has evolved. But it was a really well done movie. I really enjoyed it.
It came out in 1998, so it's been 25 years.
25 years.
That one and Ed TV with McConaughey were around that time. And and they were kind of these like future looks at the reality shows like The Real World and things like that that were already going on in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, and this is before Survivor. I believe the Survivor show didn't start until after that. 2000. Came out in 2000.
Yeah.
So these all predated those type of game shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, that shows how long it's been going for. So
yeah, the Truman Show, being a movie about basically they adopted a child and then built this world around him, and the child didn't know any different, thought it was all real.
They filmed it live to his birth even.
Yes. So it was a whole thing, and then designed to create the show run, and they had to, build the thing. Supposedly it was this big giant set. They actually filmed it in Florida at a coastal town, but it was designed to be like this giant dome they built, and they built the town in there, and then they everybody was actors except for the kid.
Right. Yeah. And then they have some funny situations where, he starts an error occurs where his radio in his car starts picking up the transmission signals from the walkie-talkies, and so he can hear them saying like he's turning on something street and extras get ready, move into place. So he's like, wait a minute, and he's noticing everything's happening that he's hearing, and so he starts getting suspicious, and then it starts getting almost comical when he starts figuring out like how what lengths they go to try to stop him. It's like nuclear disaster and all this stuff is happening to try to keep him from leaving.
Right.
But, and then it was also an interesting look at the Ed Harris character because he kind of plays God.
Yes.
And as everything,
well, I believe he calls himself God at one point.
he might have.
He goes, "I am God" or something like that.
But at the end, like he was even willing to almost kill Jim Carrey just to keep the illusion going as much as possible. And but Jim Carrey pushed through that because he was just like he was so determined to find out the truth, and he got through that. And then
they built in these great phobias into the character, and one of them was about water, drowning. And they said his father drowned. Well, then they bring the father back. He didn't drown. And that was a whole storyline they were introducing.
Yeah.
And then crossing bridges. He had trouble crossing bridges.
Yeah. Anything over water.
Yeah. They basically tormented this child.
Right.
As an adult, he had these huge phobias.
Yeah. And the father figure, and then also his love interest that he truly loved, they were actually, so because of them doing this child this way, the outside world, you have people who protest this and don't agree with this. And the dad was killed off to create this water phobia. Well, the actor wanted to be back in, so he actually snuck on set and worked himself back. He showed up, and Jim Carrey's like, "Oh my God, Dad's alive!" And so they had to bring him back because that was making him suspicious. So there were so many things they did. Which was interesting the way they tied it up. So definitely worth to see if you haven't seen it. It's probably some of Jim Carrey's best acting. Another film of his I want to see that I've never seen is, and I might be saying it wrong, The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I want to see that one.
I haven't seen that one in a long time.
Yeah. So that's another one on my list.
Yeah, that one was Kate Winslet, Kirsten Dunst, Elijah Wood. It's got a big cast on that one. That one was written by Charlie Kaufman, who's well known for a lot of different stuff. Came out in 2004. Yeah. I haven't seen that one in a long time, though.
And if I understand the premise correctly, they have the technology where if you have traumatic memories or bad memories, you can have them erased from your mind.
Yes.
And so it kind of explores, like, people a lot of times wish they didn't experience a certain thing in their event, but what does that do to create you? And when you remove it, how do you change if that never happened?
Right. Yeah. That's something I'll have to check out too. I'm not sure where it's streaming at, but
I haven't seen it, so I don't know. I've looked a couple times.
Yeah. It looks like you can rent it like from Voodoo Prime and all that stuff, but I don't think it's actually, Peacock. It says it's on Peacock.
Has it? Oh,
yeah. So I'll have to check that out. I have Peacock. And that,
but,
yeah, that's another one, shows him as a good dramatic actor. People forget that about Jim Carrey. They all know The Mask and all these other goofy stuff, but he's a really good actor.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, if I was just coming up and I had this great dramatic movie I had, and I was trying to cast for it, the first group I'd go to is comedians. Yeah. They seem to make the best dramatic actors.
Well, they really do, because a lot of them tell you, Robin Williams talked about this, for a bunch of them talked about over the years, is a lot of comedians for their comedy pull from their tragedy.
Right.
And people that are dramatic actors, trained dramatic Shakespearean actors, even in some of the comedies of Shakespeare's one way, but they really can't do comedy like we know comedy now, because they just don't have that in them. So, I mean, really, to be funny, you have to pull from a dark place sometimes. And the best comedic actors are those that can play it straight too.
Right.
So,
I agree.
Yep.
Well, hey, you go.
Next week I won't be here. I will be out of town next week. So Scott does the show. He'll let you all know.
I'll at least do a half a show.
Yeah, I'll pop in back on 2 weeks. We'll do another full show, catch up on my travels and things like that, and then get you guys all ready for Christmas. Maybe 2 weeks we'll do a nice little pre-Christmas, talk about some different things that way. So
yeah, quick Crimson Shadows update. All the lettering is done. Brett did a wonderful job on that. Everything is now in the process of formatting for different printing companies. I'm in the process of setting up the pre-launch campaign. So pretty soon we'll be posting a pre-launch page where you can follow. So we'll give details on that, and it's going to go live. It's probably going to go live end of January now, just so we don't compete with the Christmas season.
yeah,
So it'll probably be end of January, but I believe we might have some sneak peek books available for Great Lakes Comic-Con, so you can at least preview it live and decide if you want to get it through the Kickstarter then. So cool. I think that's the way it's going to go.
Sounds good.
So, but it's all good. It's looking spectacular. I can't wait. I just ordered some proof copies, so we'll have some hard copies in hand that I'll be able to share with Brett and Kevin when I see them in person.
Yep.
But I'm very excited for it. This is looking spectacular.
Well, good. All right. Hey, well, I'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Scott will see you next week. Y'all have a great week. Bye.
Adios.